So I'm in the process of sharing 3 reflections with you from the life of David, looking at ways in which David refreshed himself in God, particularly in terms of the partnerships and relationships that he was involved with. The first relationship we looked at was with Samuel, who was actually responsible for anointing him and his willingness to receive that anointing, and the time which he'd spent on his own with God, looking after sheep, not very much happening around him, but he was the one that God had chosen. And it was surprising that situation should take place. Now, the second little episode that I want us to think about is way back at the beginning of 1 Samuel chapter 18, and it's about David's partnership or relationship, if you like, with Jonathan. And this is what we read at the beginning of that chapter. After David had finished talking with Saul, Jonathan became one in spirit with David, and he loved him as himself. And Jonathan made a covenant with David because he loved him as himself. Jonathan took off the robe he was wearing and gave it to David, along with his tunic and even his sword, his bow and his belt. This was an incredibly close, committed relationship that existed between these 2 men. I sometimes refer to that relationship as a peer mentoring relationship. And to those of you who know me, that'll come as no surprise that I work mentoring into these reflections somewhere along the line. They were committed to each other. And of course, as you'll know, if you're aware of any element of the story, Jonathan had to watch David's back a lot of the time, particularly in terms of David's relationship with King Saul, Jonathan's father, because Saul became very intimidated by David and the success or fruitfulness that he seemed to enjoy. And in this relationship, there's a specialness. And there's my second S, actually, for the second reflection, that this relationship was special. And I think that as God's people, taking our example from David, we all need special relationships around us. In fact, there were 2 leadership gurus a few years ago called Stanley and Clinton, who said that any leadership which stays the course, which exists for the long haul, is supported by a network of relationships. We don't just need 1 person or 2 people who will be on our side and watch our back. We need a network of people who'll support us. I thank God that part of my refreshing myself in him has been through a network of relationships that I've had all my life. I think of my history tutor when I did A-level history in the 6th form at school. He's still a great friend of mine, actually. We're talking about 40 years on. And whenever we meet, I feel incredibly refreshed and empowered by him. He's become something of a peer. There's no seniority here or hierarchy. We're on the same level and we encourage each other. We ask each other challenging questions sometimes because we want the best for each other. I've got people around me who ask me challenging questions sometimes, particularly about what I'm doing with my time and what I'm saying yes to and what I'm saying no to. My wife's pretty good at that, incidentally, as well. But we need people who won't just be yes people around us. I'm part of 2 governing bodies. I chair 1 governing body, and we're encouraged by governors to be critical friends of the school and of the management. I think we all need critical friends, actually. Critical in the sense that they're really important, they're vital, but critical also in the sense that they offer positive criticism of what we do and help us to discern the way forward. So there we have it. There's my second example. It's a special partnership, a special relationship between David and Jonathan, but one which was used for David to be able to refresh himself in God, to know that he wasn't on his own, that there were people watching his back and helping him to stay on track.